another episode of the Community Rec Podcast. For today's episode, we're joined by a special guest and longtime supporter of our publication. It's Andrew Page, the president and CEO of the Grand Traverse Bay YMCA in Michigan. And today, specifically, we're discussing a topic that's been at the forefront of a lot of leaders in the industry's mind, which is staff management and staffing in general. But before we get to that, Andrew, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to talk with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Andrew had given a really great response on this topic overall a couple months ago at the Community Rec Leadership Summit. And so I definitely wanted to give him more time to talk about how his YMCA handles staffing and staff management. So first, overall, describe the overall staffing structure at your YMCA and kind of what the groundwork is like and how many people are on your staff, what's like the rough size estimate of your YMCA, so on and so forth.
Yeah, so we, on average, about 200 employees. We have just a little under 50 of those employees that are full-time. Obviously, that number will vacillate depending upon the season. Our numbers are a bit higher, of course, when we have our summer camp and that sort of thing. But that's essentially kind of the composition of our team numbers is about 250 of them are full-time.
Gotcha, terrific. And then I think at the summit you had explained how you were handling your staff management and structure. Is that similar to other YMCAs overall?
Just after I started getting here, we've really tried to focus more on moving people into full-time positions. I know that may seem counterintuitive from a cost cultivation perspective, but it's really the opposite of that. It actually saves us money. And I think, I've heard other Ys that try to do that as well. Obviously, most Ys are very part-time focused. They have to be with certain positions that you have, whether it's group fitness instructors, personal trainers, lifeguards, what have you. But we've really worked towards cultivating the good staff that we have, career mapping those staff, identifying who those staff members are that we would like to have longevity with. And we've really worked more towards a full-time model. When I started here, we were about half of what we have with full-time staff now. And we are, what that has essentially done for us is a number of things. First, it's been a very strong cost cultivation perspective. We don't have to recruit as much. We don't have to disrupt our culture as much. We don't have to worry about what's going on in different departments when we have identified and keep very, very good leaders. And that really comes from us investing in those folks in full-time and allowing them to really realize that there are true full-time career opportunities in the YMCA, and that's something that we continue to embrace.
Terrific, awesome. I know at the summit you had spoken about how a lot of people that are on your staff remain there and remain secure in their jobs. What are some strategies that you think your YMCA does so well when it comes to keeping your employees happy and content with where they're at and their overall trajectory?
We don't helicopter parent. If you're getting the job done and you're getting the job done in a capacity that is commensurate with what the expectations of the organization are, we don't helicopter parent or follow that. It's very, very important that we have a strong sense of flexibility that's beneficial for both the organization and the individual. Compensation, I know that that's a big one, but it's, people need to be paid, and we compensate here at our YMCA very, very fairly in relationship to not only other nonprofits, but other for-profits as well. And that has, we've fared very well in that regard. We've had incredible longevity. One of the things I spoke of at the summit was the fact that we've had such great longevity with people who are still relatively young in their careers, that people that are behind them a little bit, we may tend to lose. And in many respects, that's a good thing, because what that means is that that person and that individual has done very well by us, and that they have done so well that other organizations have seeked them out, and potentially they've moved on to those positions. And that's just very important for us from when we talk about retention of an individual rather than an employee, and we think in terms of what can we do that's best for that particular individual. And if that means that it's not at the YMCA because they have an opportunity to grow elsewhere because of the success they've had with us, we celebrate and embrace that. And we've had that happen. We've lost some really great people, but we've celebrated that. And we're very, very blessed to have the retention that we have here. We've created a very strong culture and a consistent culture that's helped us not only maintain membership, but continue to have a very strong staff member base.
Awesome. We're actually as an office reading a book over. Well, we recently just read a book over strong leadership attitudes and things of that nature. And one of them was preparing for your leave whenever it's time to go. How is the organization going to be when you leave, and how is the organization going to react? So I think that's a great value that you guys have instilled there at your YMCA. So. But I was also curious, how have those kind of strategies evolved over time during your time there at the YMCA? What kind of lessons have you learned that have maybe changed the way that maybe you guys handle staffing?
I think one of the biggest lessons that I've learned as a leader is stick with people as long as you can. I think sometimes in leadership, one of the most important assets you have that you have to take advantage of is time. Always use that time to assess. Knee-jerk reactions never work out very well. So, and it's kind of a skill to learn how to use your time. So I think that's one of the lessons I've really learned is when we have a potentially difficult situation, take the time to assess and understand it. That's always going to do well by you. You know, process, don't react. Really try to understand that there's always more to the story. I'll kind of share a story with that personally with me that really has helped me define how I am a vulnerable leader and how I try to understand what I may think I know what's going on, but in many instances we don't because we don't take the time to investigate what's actually happening. So this is years ago, but my daughter was in a program called Girls on the Run. And I'm a pretty competitive person. I've been an athlete. And she was in Girls on the Run, and I'm sure some of the folks that are listening to this have heard of this. She's in fourth grade, and I would pick her up from the Girls on the Run practice, and she'd sit in the back seat of the car, and I'd look through the rearview mirror, and I'd say, well, how'd it go? And every day she'd say to me, well, we finished in last. You know, so you hear that a few times, like, okay, whatever. Well, I'd heard it consecutively. And I started to get a little bit concerned and curious. And I would look at her in the back seat after I pick her up. And one day I said to her, you know, Kai, you're always finishing last. Like, why is that? So in my mind, I'm thinking she's just not trying hard enough, or it's not interesting to her, or she's kind of goofing off, or whatever the case may be. And she said, Dad, you don't understand. And I said, okay, well, help me understand. And she said, I run with Angie. And I said, well, who's Angie? And she said, well, Angie is the girl that I talked to you about who had the car accident last year. And she said, she can't run on her own. So I stick my arm out, and she holds onto my arm, and that's why we finish in last place, because I'm helping her balance as she runs. And I, of course, at that point I said, well, then you finish first every time you've run for being a compassionate person. So that really that left such an impact on me that as a leader, I have to always understand. I may know everything that's going on, but I probably don't. So using time and using that intuition to be retrospective about what might be happening, I think is an incredibly important lesson that we can all learn in leadership.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for that story. But I also think that overall lesson is so important in community rec, where you're dealing with so many people in the community and you're trying to lead your members in a way that keeps retention high, but also your staff too. So I think that was awesome. Great. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
But I want to keep an eye to the future as well. I'm curious, what are maybe some things that you guys are looking at, or maybe some other ways that you hope your YMCA evolves when it comes to staffing and retention and things of that nature?
I think there's a variety of different things we do. I think it obviously starts with acquisition. I think we have to all be very creative in our acquisition. The other thing that we really focus on a lot here is the discipline of simple, and that is sometimes the hardest things to do are the simplest things to do. We're very intuitive thinkers as human beings. We like to be complex about things. It's just kind of our nature, but the discipline of simple is incredibly important. So when we look at being creative, we also want to make sure that the creativity creates a simple message as far as our acquisition is concerned. So we're always trying to be creative in that regard. I think another really important thing that we have to continue to do well is we just talked a little bit about compensation. Obviously, that's a fundamental thing that everybody has to really pay attention to. But recognition is also incredibly important. People want to be known for the good work that they do, and we work really, really hard to make sure that we recognize people as best we possibly can. I think really culturally that we want to be the place of choice for employment here in the Traverse City region. And in order for us to do that, we have to have very strong retention with the staff that we have. We have to have a very strong reputation. We have to continue to make sure that we are cultivating our culture, and our culture is one that we want people that want to come to work. We want people that want to tell others that this is where they work, and we've had a lot of really great success with that. So acquisition is incredibly important. Retention is something else that's very important. We identify our rising stars, and we have a career mapping program for those folks that we work on a monthly basis to say, okay, where are we at? How can we move these people along? Where are they now, and where do they want to be? We can't obviously do that with everyone, but those folks that we identify, and that's helped us kind of promote from within, which is the best form of acquisition, is to find the people that you have in your facilities that are doing very well by you, and working to make sure that they are achieving the level of promotion that they need to have within our organization. So we focus very, very heavily on that as well. The biggest thing, honestly, John, is that we just don't take ourselves too seriously. I know that's easy to say, but none of us wear the C-suite badge or the senior director badge. We don't wear those badges around here. We just don't. We all lead from the middle, and that's a very important component too. When you're in the middle, you can push, you can pull, you can hear, you can be heard. Sometimes when you're just standing out in front, you don't have that. Sometimes when you're behind, you don't have that. And that's really our mantra with our leadership team is, we're either on the floor or at the door. And what I mean by that is that we are interacting with our staff every day, whether it's saying hello or goodbye or being with them while they're here at work. Same thing with our members. And we do that in a way that is, it's kind of vulnerable. And vulnerability is an important part of leadership as well. So we really focus heavily on making sure that we are, yes, do we have different responsibilities, different stressors, different things that we have to work out? Yes, but are we all part of the same team? Yes. And if one piece of that puzzle is missing, the puzzle's incomplete. And we just continue to learn those lessons as leaders in the organization.
Awesome, terrific. Thank you for that. We read a lot of books here in our office, as you can tell, but we were reading a self-awareness book, and in this book, it's detailing how to be self-aware and to realize how you're also viewed to others. So there's like two different kinds of self-awareness. I like how you were talking about how when you're a leader, you can't lead too far ahead, because when you're too far ahead and out in front, it can become problematic, and the same with being too far in the back. So it's having that self-awareness can benefit the entire organization.
That's so important. We call that, you hear the phrase "the man in the mirror," and that's when the man or the woman in the mirror, and you look at yourself and how you feel about yourself. But what about the mirror in the man or the woman? And what I mean by that is, how do other people perceive themselves when they're with you? And that's a very important component of self-awareness. It's probably somewhat easy for us to reflect and feel how we feel about ourselves, but how do we make other people feel? How do they see themselves with us? And that is something that it really comes through leadership with compassion, truth with compassion, and we try to work on that as well with all of the folks that work with us every day.
Awesome. Well, we've talked a lot about your YMCA, but I was curious for your overall insights when it comes to the industry abroad and the entire scope of the industry. What are some issues that you're hearing when it comes to other rec centers and what other YMCAs are having with staffing? Can you kind of give a brief general overview from your perspective of where the industry is at right now?
Well, I think I think there's a couple of things. I think one is compensation. I think that's always going to be a challenge. Wages continue to go up. And we have to meet those demands. Just because we're a nonprofit doesn't mean that we shouldn't be paying our people well. I think that's a big challenge. I think, as a multi-generational facility, you have multi-generational staff, and I think there's some generation gaps that I think everybody deals with. We're a business of public accommodation, like all wise. So our people can't work from home. There may be a few here and there that we do that, but we strongly advise against that, especially at the administrative levels, because the lifeguard doesn't get to work from home. The staff member doesn't get to work from home. We're very fortunate that we have nobody that wants to work from home anyway. They all want to be here, which is great. But I think it's, helping understand those generational gaps and what some of the expectations are in that regard. And listen, I'm learning about I'm learning about that every day. I cannot profess that I have that figured out. But it's, I think that's also another challenge that people have. And I think, the third one really is the cultivation, acquisition, and holding on to really good people. We all need good people in our organizations. And, I've heard, from some of my colleagues that, that can sometimes be tough, especially when you're so primarily part-time. But those are really some of the things that I have heard. But on the flip side, what I've really heard is, like our YMCA, I have so many folks that can convey the same things and just talk about the retention they've had with their staff and the culture that they've created. And I think that's really a testament to the work that we do at the YMCA. I mean, I get to come to a YMCA to work every day. I mean, I can't be much more blessed than that. I get to come into a facility where people are working out and they're happy and they're engaging, and we're helping people, improve their lives. And sharing that to potential new employees or the ones that exist here is even more important than what's on their paycheck.
Terrific. I think that's an awesome thought when it comes to just being reminded of what your mission is when it comes to your trying to assist the benefit of all lives that come into your YMCA, because that's our mission here at Peak Media, is to assist professionals like yourself do that job. So like whenever times get tough or we're having a really busy day or just a bad day in the office, it's good to remind myself of that too. That's my mission, is to help people like you help the world at large. So thanks for that.
No, thank you.
But But Andrew, one of the last questions I do want to ask is, you've given a lot of advice already and some tips, but like, what are some lasting things that you would want to say to anyone who's listening or watching this, or any rec center leader, when it comes to pertaining to staff management? Because like I said this at the start, this has been a challenging topic for some specific YMCA. So what would be your last little tips?
I think I would just say, don't be afraid to be a vulnerable leader. I ask the team nobody works for me. We work with one another. But I ask my team that I work with regularly for help. I don't have it all figured out. And they in turn ask me for that. So I think being vulnerable, realizing that, I've made many mistakes in my career. And I've learned from those mistakes. But I think being a vulnerable leader is an absolute strength, and letting folks that you work with know that you don't have it all figured out. And I think oftentimes we feel the pressure of putting ourselves on a pedestal or some elevation, and I think that's important, obviously, when you lead. But part of that is also realizing that you don't have it all figured out. I think that's something that I've had a relatively long career, but that's something that I continue to learn. And again, I said this before, I think the other thing is just don't take yourself too seriously. Relax, take a big breath, be grateful. Even in the times when we're struggling the most, there's always something you can find to be grateful for. That is what should sustain you as a leader, is even when it's tough, there's always something to be grateful for. And if you live by that and you practice that every day, even when you're struggling or there's challenging times, that's really what has really helped me get through is just being grateful.